On our previous episode, we covered Commodore releasing the C64 GS, which as predicted, failed to impress the market and the public. Sega cashed in on the Nintendo Game Boy owned market, but due to some problems of their handheld, it had lackluster results. Philips released their CDI, which was so bad it permanently tarnished Philips' company name and defaced some Nintendo characters' credibility for decades to come. But the most important event last time was an event that never happened. The Super Nintendo CD. Due to a failed partnership between Nintendo and Sony that fell through, Sony decided it would be in their best interest to create a separate CD-based console. ESRB, or Entertainment Software Rating Board, was established to ensure that all games were rated and young children couldn't have access to violent and mature games. Since everyone was getting into the video game business, the company Pioneer decided it would be a good decision to make their own game console themselves. Just like RDI Technologies' failed Halcyon, Pioneer's LaserActive was also a Laserdisc-based game console released in 1993. But with a price of $970, the Pioneer LaserActive barely moved from retailers' shelves. LaserActive games weren't the only feature the Pioneer LaserActive offered. In addition to games, a LaserActive owner could buy separately add-on modules, or packs, by Pioneer. These packs increased the LaserActive's compatibility to work with Mega Drive, PC Engine, and HuCard games as well. Some other packs the LaserActive offered were the Computer Interface Pack. This pack allowed the LaserActive to be controlled by custom programs authorized by a PC or Mac computer. The LaserActive even had support for 3D goggles, which worked with the Pioneer LaserActive 3D games. The 3D goggles for the LaserActive worked perfectly well for Sega Master System 3D titles. Sega didn't stop there though with the compatibility of the Master System. After buying a $600 Sega pack, and users could play Sega CD and Genesis titles right from their LaserActive, without having to own a Genesis console. Pioneer, though, didn't just have contracts with Sega. NEC was involved with the LaserActive's development as well. NEC released an NEC Pack, which allowed users to play 8 and 12-inch LaserActive discs, as well as current TurboGrafx CD-ROM games, HuCards, and CD+G discs. The LaserActive even had a karaoke pack, which allowed the LaserActive to become a karaoke music system. Despite all these wonderful features the LaserActive could give to any user, it was a commercial failure. To achieve the complete Pioneer LaserActive experience in 1993, you would have to pay about $2,900. In today's standards, that would be $4,500. 99% of the market was alienated due to this digital divide. The Pioneer LaserActive is the second most expensive console in video game history, right underneath the RDI Halcyon. Due to the failed target audience, lack of promotion, and mainly price, the Pioneer LaserActive was DOA. It is an extremely rare collectible to own to this day. Failing miserably with the Commodore C64 GS and CD-TV, Commodore tried one more time to cash in on the video game market. This final ultimatum to the public was the Amiga CD32. Advertised falsely as the first 32-bit game system, and even boast this on the front of their game console, the FM Towns Marty was actually the first 32-bit game console and not the CD32. The CD32 had a dual-speed CD-ROM drive, HEA chipset, and many expansion ports. The CD-ROM drive supported many formats, such as audio CDs, karaoke CDs, CD+G, and CD-TV software as well. Combined with the optional FMV cartridge, CD32 could support video CDs, photo CDs, and even CDI. Having an already extensive original Amiga library at its disposal, the CD32 launched with many ports of already existing games. Third-party developers didn't wait to jump on this bandwagon. Many developers for the CD32 put little interest in making original games, and mainly focused on porting Amiga games to the CD32, with added color depth, CD quality music tracks, and adding FMV cutscenes. The CD32 sold for about $400 and was not advertised much outside of the United Kingdom. The CD32 had adequate sales in the UK, securing about 38% of the CD-ROM market. However, after the CD32's successful launch in the United Kingdom, Commodore was about to encounter a very big problem, and ensuring CD32's sales would be last on their list. Commodore's CD32 utilized already patented software by a company named CAD-Track. The patented software that CAD-Track owned that the CD32 used was named an XOR patent and had to do with displaying a cursor on a screen. Commodore was later found guilty of patent infringement, and a federal judge ordered an injunction against Commodore to prevent them from importing any CD32s in the United States. The NTSC launch was put on hold. Ordered to pay a royalty infringement fine of $10 million, the 100,000 CD32 units that were sold in Europe were not enough to save Commodore International. After a decade of failing and flailing to secure the video game console market, Commodore, the founder of the best-selling home computer of all time, the Commodore 64, filed for bankruptcy in 1994 of April, just months after the CD32's debut. Before Commodore's demise and the federal injunction, Commodore planned to release the CD32 in the United States and built up a stockpile in their Philippine manufacturing facility. However, when Commodore filed for bankruptcy, the unshipped Amiga CD32 units planned for the US launch were seized by the Philippine government as payment for the use of their factory. Any possible hope for localization for the Amiga CD32 were crushed forever. Even though the NTSC US launch was cancelled, imported models did come over from the Canadian border, and many mail-order stores based in the United States imported units for domestic sale. The XOR patent that ended Amiga and Commodore would have been thrown out in today's courts due to it being ridiculous, arbitrary, and having a very broad description. Times never change either. Companies are still fighting and enforcing ridiculous and broad patents which are stifling innovation to this day. After Commodore's passing, other companies didn't wait to achieve what Commodore failed at for many years. In 1993, Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins was out to create a new generation of CD-based video game entertainment standards. This standard would be manufactured by various partners and licensees, and the company would collect a royalty on each console sold and each game manufactured. This idea and standard later materialized into the Panasonic 3DO, or 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, conceived by the 3DO Company. The 3DO Company didn't construct any of its 3DO systems, but instead chose to develop a technology and license it to third-party manufacturers, such as Panasonic, Gold Star, Sanyo, Creative Labs, and AT&T. The 3DO was powered by a 32-bit processor and had separate video coprocessors which rendered games in a 24-bit color and was able to display full-motion video as well. The 3DO also featured an internal drive that was utilized for saving games and caching game data during gameplay. The 3DO didn't slack in the sound department either. The 3DO delivered 16-bit full stereo crisp sound with Dolby Surround sound technology, which was one of the first to ever incorporate this into a console. The experimental hardware that the 3DO carried was a great leap forward in 1993 and was revolutionary for the time period, and would also feature a precedent for all future video games to come afterwards. With reasonable license fees and heavy marketing, the 3DO seemed destined for success, but unfortunately, some hindering factors did not make this possible. The biggest factor, and has always been the biggest factor in video game consoles, was the price. With the 3DO being priced at an alienating $700, or $12.28 USD in today's dollars, much of the gaming community was alienated due to this high price, and only the affluent were able to enjoy the 3DO. With the high price point being argued very early on in the 3DO's lifespan, Trip Hawkins' argument was that the 3DO was not a video game console, but a high-end audio-visual system, and was priced accordingly, so no price drop would ever be introduced. The 3DO tried way too hard to impress consumers with its visual power, and thus leads to our next problem: gameplay. Just like the Sega CD, the 3DO relied too much on full motion video or FMV to deliver the gaming experience. FMV production was costly at the time. Though impressive in 1993, it didn't offer or show much to the gamer other than just eye candy. The 3DO had only one controller port, so to achieve a multiplayer experience, the second controller had to be plugged into the first master controller, thus creating a daisy chain effect, which was not a good call by 3DO at all. With very few individuals being able to afford the 3DO's high price point, the 3DO failed to obtain a decent profit and was discontinued 3 years later, along with the cancellation of the 3DO's planned successor, the Panasonic M2. 3DO wasn't dead yet, however. They restructured their internal software development house as multi-platform friendly and decided to support the other competitors' video game consoles and computer platforms. Then, after 7 years of being dormant, Atari, the original mover and shaker of the video game industry, returned to the console market to try to turn around a profit for the company once more. Originally codenamed Panther, Project Panther eventually evolved into the 64-bit Atari Jaguar. With IBM producing the console, Atari and IBM had an exclusive $500 million contract stating that the console would be first released early in New York City and San Francisco Bay in 1993, and the rest would be a nationwide release in early 1994. Atari being already boastful about the Jaguar claiming its 64-bit superiority, Atari also said the console touted 5 processors mounted on 3 chips. With the original release location consisting of New York City and San Francisco, the Atari Jaguar debuted at a price of about $250. Originally designed to go toe-to-toe and knock out the current 16-bit generation consoles, Atari found themselves in a struggle with Sony's new project and Sega's 32-bit brainchild they would release a year later. Even though the Atari Jaguar was a very powerful console, it was another commercial failure on Atari's part. One of the issues the Jaguar had early in its lifetime was its limited and lackluster game library. For example, the Atari Jaguar had 3 very weak launch titles when the Jaguar debuted. Cybermorph was an impossible-to-control space shooting game and definitely did not show off the Jaguar's 64-bit power. Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy was a mediocre side-scroller with no music. The best launch title out of the 3 was most likely Raiden, but it was been ported to many other consoles before that as well. The Jaguar also suffered with third-party development. Most third-party developers were already busy with Nintendo, Sega, and Sony's new project. Initially, when the Jaguar was released, 158 developers announced they were on board with the Jaguar. With so many third-party developers backing up the console, many titles still never saw the light of day, and most never got past the planning stages or concept designs. The new state-of-the-art technology that the Jaguar had created programming difficulties for third-party developers. This was due to the Jaguar having 3 different processors. 2 of the processors, codenamed Tom and Jerry, did most of the work, while the third chip, the Motorola 68000, governed the Tom and Jerry chip processes and made sure everything flowed smoothly. Many amateur programmers, however, new to the Jaguar's 3-chip design, programmed the Motorola chip as the main processing unit, while Tom and Jerry just sat in the background. This caused many Jaguar titles to have lag in gameplay. Other third-party developers pulled out of the Jaguar's project quickly due to the console having low sales initially. Even though the Jaguar was a lackluster seller in the video game industry, it still had one factor that no other console had: a 64-bit processor. Even Atari coined the catchphrase for the Jaguar, "Do the math," as in 64-bit was better than 16 or 32. But taking a step back and actually looking at the graphics of these 64-bit games, and one will deduce that the graphics on the Jaguar don't look any better than the graphics on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis.